Across so much of modern America, the rhythm of daily life has slipped into something loud and hurried. Rent edges upward with a kind of quiet insistence. Commutes stretch longer than they used to. Even a simple grocery run seems to take more from the wallet and the spirit than it once did. And somewhere beneath all of that noise, many people are carrying the same small, honest question. Does life really have to feel this rushed? Today, we're traveling to places where the answer leans gently toward no. Scattered across the map, tucked into mountain valleys, settled beside slow rivers, resting under wide, open skies, are communities that still move at a human pace. Towns where the morning air feels unhurried, where neighbors recognize your footsteps before your name, and where the pressures of modern life seem to ease just enough for the heart to settle. This isn't simply a tour of affordable towns or pretty views. It's an exploration of something quieter and more valuable. The idea that kindness itself can shape a place, that a town can hold you rather than overwhelm you, that you can arrive looking for lower home prices or calmer streets, and find a version of life you didn't realize you'd been missing. Along the way, you'll hear current Zillow and Redfin estimates, rental ranges that still feel reasonable, walkable centers, open porches, and the calm steadiness that fixed-income households often hope for. And stay until the final town, because number one doesn't just offer slow living, it reveals something many Americans are quietly longing for right now. If peaceful living calls to you, subscribing helps more than you know. At number 10, we arrive in Abingdon, where the Appalachian foothills slow your breathing before you've even parked the car. There's something about this town, a softness in the air, a gentleness in the way the streets move, that makes you feel as though life has finally taken its hand off the accelerator. Abingdon is, at its heart, a theater town wrapped in mountain calm. The kind of place where creativity isn't loud or showy. It's woven quietly into everyday living. Abingdon blends small-town arts culture with the steady rhythm of mountain life. Median home prices, based on current Zillow estimates, tend to land in a comfortable range for southwestern Virginia, low enough that retirees, remote workers, and downsizers can breathe a little easier. Rentals, especially 1- and 2-bedroom units, usually fall into an accessible monthly window as well, offering a level of financial predictability that many fixed-income households appreciate. The overall cost of living often sits below the national average, giving the town a gentle, livable feel. What makes Abingdon special is how scenic it feels without ever drifting into isolation. You'll find tree-lined streets, a historic district with brickwork that remembers more than it says, and the Barter Theater, a cultural anchor so beloved it's simply part of the town's rhythm. Community events are frequent, the kind people wander into rather than plan around, and neighbors tend to lean into that signature Appalachian friendliness, warm, steady, never rushed. Of course, life here comes with its practical realities. Large-scale shopping is limited, and the local job market can feel small unless your work travels with you through a laptop. But for those seeking quiet charm with a touch of artistic energy, these trade-offs are often part of the appeal. And on a quiet Tuesday morning, you might catch the smell of fresh biscuits drifting from a local bakery as the mountains sit softly in the background. At number 9, we arrive in Decorah, where kindness feels woven into the hills and the heritage. There's a warmth here that doesn't need to be announced. It's simply present, settling into the pace of the streets, the conversations at the cafe, and the gentle way the town seems to look after its own. Decorah carries its Norwegian roots with quiet pride, shaping a community heartbeat that feels steady, grounded, and deeply welcoming. Decorah's housing market reflects the approachable character of the Midwest. Median home prices, based on current Zillow trends, remain within reach for many families, retirees, and remote workers. Rentals, especially 1- and 2-bedroom homes, tend to fall below urban averages, easing the strain for those living on fixed incomes or making a fresh start. The overall cost of living often sits comfortably below the national baseline, adding to the town's sense of stability. The landscape is part of Decorah's charm. Limestone bluffs rising softly around the edges, riversides made for unhurried walks, and a downtown that invites wandering rather than rushing. Bookstores, cafes, small shops. Everything feels scaled to real life. Festivals fill the calendar without overwhelming it. Local music drifts out of community halls. Farmers markets offer food that tastes like home, even if you're new to the area. Decorah does come with its practical realities. Winters can be cold, the kind that encourage thicker coats and slower steps. Nightlife is modest, leaning more toward quiet gatherings than late hours. But for many, those qualities reinforce what the town does best: provide a calm, friendly rhythm that's easy to settle into. And if you imagine yourself walking past flower boxes on Main Street, you might notice locals greeting you by name, even if you've only lived there a month. At number 8, we arrive in Mount Airy, where small-town nostalgia meets everyday simplicity. This is the kind of place that feels instantly familiar, even if you've never stepped foot on its streets. A gentle southern town where front porches still matter, and where a warm greeting usually arrives before a question ever does. Mount Airy carries a soft, welcoming spirit, shaped by generations of easy conversation and steady neighborliness. Housing here tends to reflect that same accessibility. According to current Zillow estimates, home prices sit at approachable levels. For North Carolina, giving retirees, downsizers, and relaxed families a sense of financial breathing room. Rentals, particularly 1- and 2-bedroom spaces, remain manageable, often falling into a monthly range that suits fixed-income households and remote workers. The broader cost of living typically sits below the national average, adding to the town's quietly livable charm. Mount Airy's scenery leans into the comfort of the Piedmont Hills, rolling gently around a downtown that feels preserved in the best way. Main Street is known for its friendliness, not as a performance, but as a natural extension of the town's character. You'll find small shops, diners where the staff remembers your order, and a community that enjoys conversation as much as it enjoys calm. Of course, life here has its rhythms and realities. Tourism picks up during peak months, bringing a bit more foot traffic, and the local job market, while steady, doesn't offer a wide array of industries unless your work travels with you. But for many, those trade-offs are small. In comparison to the slower mornings and open-hearted locals that define daily life, picture a warm afternoon where neighbors wave from rocking chairs as you wander down a quiet, sunlit street. At number 7, we arrive in Lanesboro, where the Root River seems to set the pace. Unhurried, steady, calm. This is one of those towns that feels almost like a painting, the kind you might walk into without realizing you've crossed a threshold. Everything here carries a gentle, postcard-like quality, shaped as much by the land as by the people who've learned to move with it rather than against it. Zillow's current home value estimates place Lanesboro comfortably within the realm of small-town affordability. It's not a market overflowing with options. The inventory is modest, but the prices themselves remain within reach for retirees, artists, and anyone seeking a quieter foundation. Rentals can be limited, yet when they appear, they tend to sit at modest monthly rates. The broader cost of living stays below national averages, helping the town maintain that sense of grounded, Midwestern livability. What you notice first is the scenery. The ribboning Root River, limestone bluffs rising like old guardians, and bike trails that seem to invite you into a slower way of being. Lanesboro's arts culture adds a soft creative undercurrent: galleries, small performances, community gatherings that feel handmade rather than staged. The town's rhythm is gentle, almost whisper-like, perfect for those who appreciate calm as a daily companion. But life here does come with its practical boundaries. Housing availability is small, and some year-round services operate on a quieter scale. For many, though, those limitations are simply part of the landscape, reminders that Lanesboro's charm lies in its size, not in what it lacks. Imagine the sound of a river moving slowly past you as cyclists glide over wooden bridges. At number 6, we step into Floyd, where music, mountains, and kindness blend into one steady rhythm. This is a place where the Appalachian spirit doesn't rush to introduce itself. It simply surrounds you, settling into the air, the storefronts, and the soft curve of the Blue Ridge horizon. Floyd carries an unmistakable creative pulse, yet nothing about it feels hurried. It's the sort of town where a gentle greeting can carry the same weight as a melody. According to current Zillow data, median home prices in Floyd fall within a moderate range for rural Virginia. offering a level of attainability that appeals to retirees, remote workers, and longtime mountain wanderers. Rental options, from small cottages to compact apartments, tend to remain accessible, giving people room to imagine a slower lifestyle without financial strain. Day-to-day living costs sit below the national average, reinforcing the grounded calm that defines the town. Floyd is known far and wide for its music gatherings. But here, the art isn't a spectacle, it's a tradition. Weekly jams spill warmth into the night air. The mountains frame each day with a quiet, familiar presence. And the people, shaped by generations of community-minded living, offer a friendliness that feels steady rather than performative. It's an atmosphere that welcomes musicians, creatives, nature lovers, and anyone seeking a life shaped more by intention than urgency. There are trade-offs, of course. Healthcare access can require a longer drive. The retail footprint is modest, encouraging some residents to plan errands with a bit more thought. But for many, those realities are simply part of living in a place where the land, the music, and the community share an easy harmony. Picture fiddles echoing out of a Friday night jam as the Blue Ridge dusk settles over town. At number 5, we arrive in Fairfield, where community feels intentional rather than accidental. This is a town that doesn't simply grow around its residents, it shapes itself with them. There's a quiet creativity here, a gentle curiosity, and a sense that people choose Fairfield not just for affordability, but for the kind of life they hope to build. Tucked softly into the Midwest, the town carries a globally influenced spirit without losing its small-town warmth. Home prices remain accessible according to current Zillow estimates, offering a level of attainability that appeals to young families, retirees, and remote workers searching for a stable place to land. Rentals, especially near the town center, usually fall within a sensible range for 1- and 2-bedroom units. Combined with a cost of living below the national average, Fairfield provides a thoughtful, financially manageable lifestyle. What sets Fairfield apart is the richness of its arts and cultural scene. Festivals, community performances, local galleries. Creativity is treated less as entertainment and more as a shared language. Sustainable living practices echo through neighborhood gardens and small businesses. People here tend to carry a warmth that feels open-minded, yet soft-spoken, creating an atmosphere that supports both solitude and connection. Of course, the town has its natural trade-offs. Evenings can grow very calm, the kind of quiet that encourages early nights and slower rhythms. And local job opportunities don't always offer high-paying options unless your work is location-flexible. But many find those realities to be part of Fairfield's appeal, a place where life unfolds at a gentler pace. Imagine a small town square lit softly at dusk as friends gather for evening concerts in the park. At number 4, we step into Eureka Springs, where hills curl around Victorian streets and time seems reluctant to move forward. This is a town that feels carved, almost lovingly, into the Ozark hillsides, a place where every turn reveals a new angle of charm. The atmosphere carries a quiet theatricality. Ornate balconies, winding roads, and stonework that seems to have gathered stories over more than a century. Yet nothing about it feels staged. Eureka Springs simply exists in its own gentle cadence. According to current Zillow estimates, home prices here sit within a comfortable mid-range for the Arkansas Ozarks, giving retirees, creatives, and longtime nature lovers room to imagine a life rooted in beauty without stretching the budget too far. Rentals vary in style, from hillside apartments to tucked-away cottages, but they generally remain manageable for 1- and 2-bedroom needs. The cost of living trends below the national average, adding a sense of practicality to the town's artistic soul. Scenic character might be the word most often used to describe Eureka Springs, but even that feels too small. The streets bend and slope in ways that make every walk feel like a quiet discovery. Forests press close to the town's edges, keeping the air cool and green. The community vibe is unmistakably quirky, warm, welcoming, creative, and proud of its maker culture. People here seem to understand that life can be both expressive and peaceful at the same time. There are naturally a few considerations. Those beautiful hills can make walkability a challenge, and tourism rises with the warm months. adding a bit more motion to certain corners of town. Yet many residents will tell you that these rhythms are simply part of Eureka Springs' character, a place shaped by its landscape as much as its people. Picture yourself wandering a sloping street filled with old stone shops and trees whispering overhead. At number 3, we enter Lewis, where the sea, the light, and the quiet shape every day. This is a coastal town that doesn't need noise to feel alive. Its rhythm comes from the tide, the softened glow of morning, and the steady presence of a community that values calm over spectacle. Lewis feels like a place that has learned to breathe in harmony with the shoreline, offering a life built on gentle routine rather than rush. Home values here trend higher than what you'd find in deep rural communities. Yet for an East Coast beach region, current Zillow data places Lewis in a moderate, surprisingly attainable range. Rentals vary through the year, but outside the peak summer months, 1- and 2-bedroom options remain accessible enough for retirees, remote workers, and anyone seeking coastal stability without the pricing shock of larger beach towns. The cost of living sits slightly above the national average, softened by the benefits of a peaceful, well-kept shoreline and a town that prioritizes quality of life. Lewis itself moves with a quiet elegance. The beaches are calm, often defined more by early walkers than crowded umbrellas. The historic core invites slow strolling, brick paths, tidy gardens, and small shops that feel thoughtfully cared for. Safety and courtesy aren't marketing points here. They're habits, etched gently into the way neighbors speak to one another and how visitors are welcomed. Of course, living near the ocean comes with its rhythms. Summer traffic grows noticeably, and utilities and groceries sit a touch higher than the national norm. Yet many residents find these trade-offs balanced by the serenity of the coast and the steadiness of everyday life. Imagine a sunrise over the harbor as fishermen push off into still water. At number 2, we find ourselves in Sonora, where gold rush history softens into a slower, sun-soaked mountain life. The town sits in the Sierra Nevada foothills like a gentle pause between eras, shaped by its past, but content to move at the kind of pace that allows you to actually notice the warmth of the afternoon light. Sonora feels welcoming in a grounded, unforced way, as if the land itself has learned how to breathe steadily. Median home prices follow California's broader patterns, but according to Zillow's latest estimates, they remain far more accessible than the state's major coastal metros. For many retirees and remote workers, that difference creates room to downsize, reset, or simply live without the constant financial tension that surrounds much of California housing. Rental costs run higher than what you'd find in the Midwest, yet for a California mountain town, they still offer relative value, especially for 1- and 2-bedroom spaces. The overall cost of living is moderate for the region, eased by the slower pace and the landscape's quiet generosity. Sonora's surroundings are part of its everyday life. Rolling oak hills that turn golden in the late light, historic streets that carry the echo of older stories, and crisp Sierra air that clears the mind a little more quickly than expected. The community is neighborly and proud, shaped by people who value steadiness over spectacle. It's a place where families settle in, retirees feel unhurried, and remote workers find a sense of balance that can be hard to hold elsewhere in the state. Still, living here means living with a few realities. Wildfire awareness is part of the regional mindset, a responsibility residents take seriously. Public transit is limited, making life easier for those comfortable with driving. Yet for many, the trade-offs feel manageable, even worth it, in exchange for the calm and the mountain beauty that frame each day. Picture golden hills glowing at dusk as shopfronts close peacefully for the night. At number 1, we arrive in Spearfish, a town where the landscape itself seems to practice kindness. There's a serenity here that doesn't announce itself. It settles over you gradually, in the quiet of the mornings and the way the light moves across the cliffs. Spearfish feels like a place shaped by steadiness, a Black Hills community built on calm rhythms, neighborly trust, and the comfort of knowing the land is always just beyond your doorstep. Home prices, based on current Zillow estimates, remain moderate and stable for the region, offering a grounded sense of predictability for families, retirees, and remote workers. Rentals, particularly smaller units, tend to fall within reasonable ranges, giving people space to live simply without carrying the weight of an inflated budget. The cost of living typically lands below the national average, adding to the sense that life here doesn't demand more than it gives. Scenically, Spearfish is extraordinary in a quiet, unpretentious way. Dramatic cliffs rise like weathered bookends to the valley. Gentle plains stretch out with a softness that makes the horizon feel generous. River pathways weave through town, inviting slow walks and clear-headed afternoons. And the sky, wide, open, and endlessly shifting, becomes part of daily life. The community reflects that openness, friendly, peaceful, deeply rooted in traditions that value mutual respect over hurry. There are practical realities to consider. Winters can be cold, the kind that encourage warm boots and slower mornings. And big city amenities sit at a distance, making Spearfish best suited for those who prefer nature and community to constant options. Yet for many, those trade-offs only deepen the town's appeal. Imagine the wind moving softly through the canyon as the town wakes slowly beneath it. In a country that seems to accelerate with every passing season, it's remarkable how restorative a slower rhythm can feel. These towns remind us that quiet isn't a void. It's room to breathe, to think, to return to the parts of life we lose in the rush. Affordability matters, yes, but so does warmth. And sometimes choosing a gentler town is really choosing a gentler version of yourself. Spearfish sits at the top of this list for a reason, not because it is the cheapest, or the most scenic, or even the most well-known, but because it captures something many Americans are quietly longing for. A place where daily life feels manageable again. In Spearfish, the world seems to move at a rhythm that respects the person living it. When you walk through town, there's a steadiness that settles in almost immediately. Houses remain within reach for many middle-income buyers, according to current Zillow trends, and rental options still offer room to breathe compared with fast-growing metros. The community carries a gentle generosity, neighbors helping each other shovel after a snowfall, local businesses greeting regulars by name, families gathering in parks that drift seamlessly toward the edges of the Black Hills. Nothing here feels rushed, yet everything feels cared for. But the true magic of Spearfish is harder to measure. It's in the crisp air of the morning, the kind that wakes you without jolting you. It's in the quiet, well-kept streets. It's in the way nature wraps itself around daily life, softening the sharp edges that so many people carry without even noticing. Here, you can finish your errands by early afternoon, then wander down to the river, to read, to fish, or simply to exist in a moment that isn't competing with anything. And that's the quiet truth behind towns like this. It isn't just about cost, though affordability matters. It's about the kind of life that becomes possible when the noise fades. A life where time stretches a little wider, where kindness feels ordinary, where the world no longer dictates the pace of your heart. A slower, gentler America still exists, and Spearfish is one of its clearest reminders. So today, we traveled through 10 towns where life still moves with a sense of purpose and calm, places where neighbors look out for one another, where mornings arrive softly, and where affordability and kindness manage to share the same small streets. Each town offered its own version of ease, its own reminder that a gentler pace isn't a luxury reserved for the few. It's still possible in real, everyday America. Whether you're considering retirement, renting somewhere simpler, settling into remote work, or simply imagining a different rhythm, these communities show that you're allowed to choose a life that feels good, not just busy. A life with room to think, room to breathe, room to be yourself again. Which place spoke to you, and why? I'd truly love to hear your reflections in the comments. And if peaceful, grounded stories about real American living resonate with you, subscribing helps this channel more than you know, and brings more calm, data-backed explorations your way. For real-world escapes, not fantasies.